Kevin, what is going on in the press at the minute?
It's crazy. Most articles I've seen are completely anti-claimant.
It's mental because when you actually look at it, you go, okay, this is absolutely unbelievable news for the claimants. You know, they've been shafted. There's been acknowledgement of that. They've been ripped off, but there's going to be compensation. So you'd think the way journalists tend to be, they love that. You know, they love the consumer champion stuff. I mean, they managed to put people like Martin Lewis on a pedestal because apparently he saved people 20 quid on their Asda shop or something like that. You know, and they turned into this Goliath. So why are we seeing articles from the likes of the Times and financially leaning ones basically calling law firms, HD Law, Sentinel, whoever, vultures, ambulance chasers? Why are they not championing us, saying thanks for bringing this to our attention? Wow.
I don't know is the honest answer. Who knows? Because it's the people we're acting for who buy their newspapers.
Exactly.
It's the people we're acting for who are probably their friend or mother or auntie, you know, who bought a car on finance. I really don't get it. I could speculate and say that somebody in the banking world has got influence with certain people in the press. I've got no evidence of that at all. That would be pure speculation. But I am both surprised and disappointed as to the narrative being spun.
Yeah,
it's disgusting. I really don't agree with it at all.
Well, I think it's you know, there's this whole narrative of like, oh, was it to the detriment of the consumer?
Yeah.
And it's been proven by the Court of Appeal that it was.
Yeah.
But now what the press are doing
Yeah.
is absolutely to the detriment of the consumer.
Yeah.
You know, the biggest one, Martin Lewis, coming out and saying, you can do this yourself, you don't need lawyers to do it, is absolute nonsense.
Yeah.
Absolute nonsense. You can fix your car yourself, you can, you know, repair your boiler, build a house.
Yeah.
You can do it.
Well, let me put it another way. You can wash your car yourself.
Yeah.
You go to a car wash. Well, why isn't he having to go with people who wash cars?
Yeah.
What are you doing? You know, you vultures.
So you're implying that, you know, something that is arguably probably much more complex you can do yourself. Do you think there's like an ulterior motive here where the banks can see them going out the door, so they're mobilising all of the talking heads, the troops, money-saving expert, the Times, all of these people to spin it, to try to like mitigate damages?
Well, as we know, what the banks like to do is things in secret and not tell you. So who knows what's going on there? But it's completely the wrong message being sent. And it's so low rent, in my opinion. I mean, let's start with the basics. They caused national scandals. That was quoted in one of the Court of Appeal decisions. PPI, national scandal. Now there's another national scandal where consumers are being ripped off, and all they want is their money back.
Yeah.
And they have to use a claimant representative to get it. But the claim representative's the vulture.
Yeah.
They act on a no-win, no-fee.
Mm-hmm.
I doubt the bank's solicitors act on a no-win, no-fee.
Yeah.
They incur a lot of costs defending banks, more than the value of the claim.
By like 20-fold.
Yeah, which is disproportionate on any view. Why aren't they vultures?
Yeah, exactly. And I think one of the things that everyone seems to miss in this industry, you know, they talk about the fees that lawyers charge, and obviously there's I mean, I'm reading a Times article here called the obscure firms behind the law firms.
Yeah.
And the opening two lines says, crusading consumer champions fighting big businesses on behalf of the powerless, ? Or ambulance chasing vultures.
Yeah.
They do realise that this would have never, ever, ever, ever happened if it wasn't for people like yourself, HD Law, to fail at court, appeal it, and then win at the Court of Appeal unanimously. Yeah, they do realise that if it wasn't for these apparent ambulance chasing vultures,
I mean that's borderline defamatory. For the kickoff, no one's been in an ambulance, so where are you getting that from? Yeah. And no win, no fee means you only get paid at the end if you're successful. How many industries do you know operate on that basis? None. It's like going to a restaurant and saying, I'll pay you if I like this meal.
Correct.
I didn't like it, so I'm not paying you. I bet he got paid for his article, even though I think it's not very good. He got paid no matter what. His first sentence was actually okay. crusading. I'm fighting big business on behalf of the party. Correct. Not a question. That should be a statement. His second sentence is garbage. It's
the city is alive with speculation.
No, or ambulance chasing vultures.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It's insulting.
But it's what's really infuriated me. Obviously, this hasn't just come out of nowhere. I mean, a lot of law firms here have spent thousands of hours before they've even gone, you know what, I'm going to issue on a couple of these cases and just see what happens. You know, the research, the sweat equity from a lawyer's perspective, a law firm's perspective, is so big at this moment in time.
Well, you've got a balancing act between, like, how much can you spend, and that you need to spend viewing a case, as to what you're able to spend financially in terms of staff.
Yeah.
And then you've got to factor in the fact that it's all back end. You don't get paid. It's results driven. And you don't get paid until the end.
Yeah.
And this particular guy, I don't think he understands how contingency fees work. How can it be vulturism? I don't even think that's a word, but I'll use it anyway, whereby you deduct what Parliament have allowed you to charge a consumer for carrying out legal services, where they get a percentage and you get a percentage. I don't understand. How's that being a vulture?
Well, it feels very much, when you read these articles, they are appealing to the uninformed, to the people who are just like, oh yeah. Let's have a dig at the law firms. You know, there's the line in it that I'll read. It says, one big difference from the PPI years is that most firms have now structured themselves so they are no longer regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority, which has tough rules on maximum fees and standards of conduct. How can you position yourself as not being regulated by the FCA? You're either regulated by the FCA if you're a claims management
I'm
firm.
not regulated by the FCA.
I'm not regulated,
but I'm regulated by the SRA.
Correct.
And I'm entitled to charge fees.
And then they go, instead, they are mostly supervised by the Solicitors Regulation Authority, which operates a lighter touch regime.
How does he know that?
What?
Yeah, we're solicitors.
Where does that come from?
I don't know. Probably his head.
And then it quotes, according to one banker, who's the banker? You're looking at large-scale regulatory arbitrage.
I mean, that's word salad.
Yeah,
I don't even know what that.
I don't know what that means. But one of the things I wanted to ask you was, you've seen a real divide from the media coverage. You know, there's been weeks. There was a couple of weeks just after the Johnson judgment where there was nothing. There was literally nothing besides a couple. It was
strange, yeah. You and I were scouring and reaching out to various media outlets saying, look, you know,
the word scandal was thrown around, landmark ruling case. But it seemed to very much in the initial weeks be the lenders of span a narrative. And that was starting to gain traction until obviously we started.
Well, it was, you know, we've got to start paying out lots of compensation. What do banks not want to do? Reduce profit, give money back they've taken. How do they do that? Well, they get people like this guy in the press to spin it, so they reduce how many claims are brought against them, because the less claims that are brought, the more they can hang on to their profits. It's as straightforward as that. So, and as well, large-scale regulatory arbitrage, as you say, no, it's just a scandal that you've caused, and we have to clean up your mess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. But then you see completely opposite ends of the spectrums. I mean, there was one article that went out, and it basically came out and said FCA is incompetent at best, dishonest at worst, claims MP and peers. Yeah. So it's almost like they don't know who to blame, but they've had a pop at the ambulance chasing law firms. Some journalists are coming out and having a pop at the regulator, saying, how can you have a go at this? And others, more consumer-friendly ones like the Mail and the Sun and stuff like that, they've come out and gone, you know what, we'll side with the consumers on this one.
I didn't read the Sun one.
No, obviously not.
The FCA one was interesting because it was quite damning. It was I've got it up in front of me. It was an article by Julia Calloway, and apologies if I've butchered your surname, but it was a report by MPs and Lords, which said it was incompetent at best and dishonest at worst, doing too little too late or nothing. Mm-hmm. Now, may I suggest that could be apparent in how they've handled this particular mis-selling scandal? Doing too little too late.
Yeah.
Maybe staying everything till the end of next year. They were not prepared to look at DCA model complaints till the end of December 2025, and this was before Johnson. And that. So, I mean, how far is that going to get kicked down the road? So, I mean, overarching all this is, well, who's going to help the consumer?
Yeah, no, exactly.
The FCA have been called incompetent at best, dishonest at worst, and I quote, doing too little too late or nothing at all. Got worse rather than better in recent years. So the FCA aren't clearly doing enough, according to this report, to the consumer.
Mm-hmm.
The banks aren't. The banks are doing the opposite. They're taking money off them illegally. And Martin Lewis is saying, up against all of that, do it yourself. Take on the banks and their army of lawyers. Look to the FCA, who can't set down rules for redress. Yeah, give them 4, 5, 6, 7 years, and they might eventually get round to it. Who's acting for the consumer? Who's coming in and protecting them? Well, it has to be claimant law firms.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I'd like to think I'm not that obscure, having been in the Court of Appeal 5 times as a solicitor and 3 times for HD Law. A little bit of research about that guy to find that I'm not that obscure.
Yeah, and I think what's quite interesting is you're starting to see a whole narrative being painted by the whole press regarding that any form of redress on this car finance scandal would limit future investment in the UK.
Yeah.
What nonsense. A load of nonsense.
Yeah. Again, it's a scare tactic.
Yeah. I mean, it really does feel like there's a massive spin doctor approach coming in this from the banks on what I personally would have thought would have been consumer friendly outlets. But does that not just sort of tip its hat to say, well, if this, like, you saw the whole thing in COVID, the stuff started to not make any sense, and it kind of feels the same way now. Yeah, it's that what the press is actually saying to the public. All right, you might give them the benefit of the doubt, but when the likes of myself or you read it, you go, this is like almost outright lies. Yeah. Does that not just go, this is a lot bigger than we think?
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I think what COVID taught us is that big institutions think they can mislead the public, and that only happens for so long before the truth comes out. And the truth's come out, and like you say, that the reaction and the way in which they've tried to scandalise claimant law firms for representing the likes of Mr. Johnson and getting the right decision, which is going to benefit millions of people. I think you've said previously, there's 31 million car finance agreements out there. So how many people are affected by that? And it's going to put money in people's pockets during a cost of living crisis. That's suddenly a bad thing.
Yeah, exactly.
So they are scared. I think they are worried about the profits going. And in terms of investments will find a way. It'll find its way to the right areas. That's market forces.
It's absolutely nonsense. I mean, I've seen a couple of things in it. Within every single article, there seems to be a little shred of truth. Yeah. And they seem to be drip feeding the information and then masking it with a load of word salad. Yeah. And within every single one, it's been, this rating agency has said it's 20 million. Yeah. Now, recently, it's Moody's have come out and said it's 30 billion. Yeah. So they keep seeming to drop little nuggets of, okay, this is how big the industry actually is. Yeah. This is what we're edging towards. And I think when you look at it like that and you go, 30 billion. Well, we know PPI was 50 odd billion, but we also know that PPI actually contributed to 3% of GDP in its height, and it was actually credited with bringing us out of a recession after the financial crisis. So all these narratives about there's no investment coming out, and there's no it's a scandal for the banks, and that it's going to hurt the banks, and poor banks narrative. Yeah, it's almost like they forget that we've got Google. Yeah. Like it almost as if they forget that most of these, to quote, ambulance chasing law firms were massive in PPI. Massive in PPI, and they go, well, no, this is what happened. Yeah, and I personally think this is just as damaging and, more importantly, insulting to the clients and the consumers that you think they're going to lap this up. Yeah, and go, it's not really a big deal.
Nothing to see here. Yeah, carry on. Yeah,
we've seen.
You almost want to say, look, you've been ripped off.
Yeah.
Just get on with it. Forget it.
Yeah. You drove the
way
car around.
Yeah, you know the way you couldn't join the gym because you were 40 quid short, and that £40 you've since learned went on towards a car finance agreement which you needn't have paid for. Just get on with it. Don't look. Banks need profit. We need millions and millions of pounds profit, and you should just get on with it and forget it. People are outraged if the TV license goes up.
Yeah.
It's there's outrage in the press. Well, this is good. But car finance, hundreds of pounds being taken off someone every month, which to the tune of like 43 billion.
Correct.
Nothing to see here. Just can you just accept you've been missold?
Yeah.
And leave us alone.
Yeah. Whilst we also take your heating allowance and everything.
Yeah. But the prices are going up everywhere.
Yeah.
You're a bit skint. You are owed money because we missold car finance to you, but we'd like to keep all this profit, and
we're not going to give it.
And you don't want to go to an ambulance chasing law firm who's going to get you some money back and do it on a no-win, no-fee basis and do all the legwork, and you don't have to do anything yourself.
Yeah, you could potentially do it yourself as well and get maybe 50 quid back.
Yeah, while you're at it, build your own house, fix your own car, fix your own boiler.
Yeah.
Everything. Don't pay for anything ever again.
No. Yeah, exactly. And one thing that we get criticised for a lot is like giving advice and this is bad advice, and there's the likes of Martin Lewis out there giving advice. What credentials he's got. I mean, if you look at any research on him, he's purely a journalist. He's got no financial credibility, financial background at all. But then you've got journalists coming out going, well, actually you shouldn't claim because you drove the car around and you enjoyed driving the car around. How are they sort of above the law in a sense to say you're actually giving people read this and they will take you as trust, and we know the trust is a big key word here. Trusting your outlets and they're trusting it for proper information to be reported. Yeah. How can they get away with sitting down and saying things like this?
I struggle to believe that journalist typed that out with a straight face.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an absolutely ridiculous statement to just say you enjoyed the car, don't moan about it now. I think I've said it on a previous podcast. It's like finding out that you bought a TV from someone and it was stolen, and the person going, but you watched TV on it, you enjoyed it, you used it. It's like, I don't care. You've misled me. You didn't tell me an important fact that was involved in the transaction. It's the same with the commission. You're denying the person when they're buying the car to make an informed choice. That's what they want. They want to know what the finance package is. Who are you asking me? You've got my details and you're putting me with this lender. Why? Are they the best lender for you or the best lender for me? Or why is the APR at 12%?
Yeah.
Well, it's because we get more commission. Oh, do you now? I'll tell you what, I'm going to go elsewhere because I'm not happy about that. But they don't. And that's the problem. And what you've got that journalist saying is, you've paid an extra, whatever, £600, for example, or Mr. Johnson's case, it turned out to be 3,200 and odd. Just forget it, write it off. And like you say, but, do overtime to make ends meet and, put 3 jumpers on because you can't afford the heating. But don't leave the banks alone. Poor banks. It's disgusting. I don't really understand this form of journalism to be so anti-consumer, anti-member of the public. Yeah. Because I'm like, well, okay, you might be a journalist and you're very clever and hats off to you, but most of the people aren't in terms of finance. We're all, to some extent, unsophisticated borrowers, unless you've got you work in the industry or you may be legally minded or you're savvy. But 95% of the population aren't, because they've got other stuff to do. They are nurses or they bus drivers or they're hairdressers. They've got other, they can't do everything. That's why the law, and where there's an imbalance of negotiation power, lenders should be clear and transparent to redress that balance. Like, look, we hold all the cards. We have up this standard agreement which you cannot change. It's take it or leave it, which is fine. Yeah. But can you just point out the prevalent bits of the transaction so I know what I'm signing up to?
Yeah.
See, I get making more money on commission. Should we put that on the front of the agreement? No. When we're drafting it, where should we put the commission bit? Tuck it right in at the back. size 6 font.
Yeah.
You drafted it, which has probably been drafted by lawyers. You're happy with it? Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
It's
Well, I think it goes back to the whole, like, there's no fact checking. You know, you know what the score is. I know what the score is. But, you know, when it comes to these journalists who have got, you know, KPIs, you know, key performance indicators to go, oh, I've got to get 5 pieces out in the space at the moment. There's no one shit testing like the actual
clickbait, isn't it?
Stuff.
Yeah.
But also, I've seen some of the preloaded emails that you've got from journalists asking for quotes.
Yeah.
And, you know, I've been approached by a number to do some press pieces, and there's a very, very clear differentiator between these ones that have got very loaded questions who are clearly trying to either tie you up in your words or paint a different narrative. And then there's the others who go, what's happened?
Yeah.
Like, genuinely, what? And you can see they go, no, we want to report on this from a position of a consumer. Can you just tell us what has actually happened? And I just think there's a thing on Twitter now since Elon Musk bought it where you actually get community checked.
Yeah,
so you can't do it.
It's
I think that's amazing.
Yeah,
and I think if you could community check all of the articles that go up now, the consumer, the banks wouldn't have a leg to stand on, because it'd be like, okay, here's my 7 wins from October with all of the orders. Here's exactly what the judges are saying. This is what Santander did. This is what Black Horse did.
Yeah.
This is wrong. You know, the all of that sort of stuff. I just think, is there a massive psyop going on at the minute to just go get as many people not to make a claim?
I think so, yeah. And I think, it goes back to the overarching approach in the banks. We do not want to part with this money.
So we'll
do whatever it is. Put people off. Tell them they can do it themselves.
Disinformation.
Yeah. But you make an excellent point about the community notes. What's that arisen out of? People are getting fed up of being lied to.
By news.
And you see that, you see it on Twitter, and they see what they're like, and you're like, you feel vindicated, you feel empowered.
Exactly.
I'm having the truth explained to me, and the untruth or the misleading statement swatted aside. I think it would be amazing if the written press or something appear online. I have to say as well, there have been some really excellent articles.
Yeah, totally agree. You know, credit where credit's due.
Kevin Peachy from the BBC done a really good article. Christian Smith in The Lawyer, he contacted me for a quote, and he was great. We want more of that, because
LBC News, GB News, they were really, BBC were actually surprisingly quite good. Should I say BBC Cambridgeshire? Yeah, really, really, really good, and they were asking the right questions.
Exactly, and what we're trying to do is get the message. We're not putting any spin on it.
No,
we're just saying you may be entitled to bring a claim. We're giving information, and we're advising people. Court of Appeal have said this. If it affects you, then you need to bring a claim. Now, that may lead to us being instructed, but I go back to the earlier point. We would not exist if the mis-selling didn't care. So if you're unhappy about our existence, however unpalatable, and you think an ambulance chasing vulture, which is quite an image, remember why I exist, and then go back to the person who's probably asked you to write that article, probably in favour of the banks, and think, well, if you didn't cause all these scandals and these messes, then there'd be no claims solicitor firms in this field. Yeah. And then you wouldn't have to write your grossly inaccurate article.
Yeah. There was one article, I can't remember which one it was now, but basically the guy from the FLA, the director from the FLA, basically said that these law firms and stuff have no interest in looking after the client. Yeah. And I go,
I mean, outrageous, unsubstantiated statements.
Unsubstantiated. I think outrageous. I think there has been firms in the past who have fallen afoul and done things that they shouldn't have done.
Of course,
but you cannot paint the entire market as an ambulance chasing vultures. Yeah. That quote itself of going with they're not interested in the client's best interest. You are a living proof of that.
No win, no fee guarantees that you are, because it's results driven. Yeah, but that's the thing.
But let's go one step further. You lost in the court, and you could have gone, sorry, Mr. Johnson, we lost. Yeah. But you didn't. You went, I'm not having that. Yeah. I'm going to appeal this. Yeah. It went all the way to the Court of Appeal, which was over how many days was it?
3.
No one was paying you for that.
No, not at that point.
No one was paying you for that. So you took all of this because you weren't happy. Mr. Johnson didn't know the difference. You weren't happy with the verdict in the county court. Yeah. Took it all the way to the Court of Appeal and won. By definition, that was within Mr. Johnson's best interest. and to significant detriment to yourself. You know, God knows how many hours it took you to prep for that.
Yeah.
The cost involved. I know what it cost because you told me about it.
Yeah.
But I'm just like, how can they get away with blanket statements like that, slagging the industry off?
Well, I guess they're entitled to their opinion, and that's their opinion, and that's fine. But it doesn't make it right.
It needs fact checking.
It does need fact checking. Yeah, I'm as you were talking, then I found it. It's in the same.
The obscure firms one, I think.
It's in the same opus. The Times article. Stephen Hadrill, Director General of the Association, told the House of Lords Committee. Right, I'm going to go through this line by line, if you don't mind, Sam. Yeah. It really is a huge business for them. Correct, but we're responding to your mis-selling.
Correct,
so,
yeah. You know, it was a huge business for you guys as
well. We
Yeah.
have tens of thousands of cases being brought to our members in great wadges.
Wadges.
Right, yeah. So let me reword that. We have tens of thousands of cases being brought to our members in great wadges because we missold tens of thousands of agreements, which have led to our clients having to instruct these solicitors to bring them to us at a huge cost in terms of handling them. Well, you've got hold of client money in our view, so it's not really costing you, just hand it back.
30 billion.
Huge potential cost in terms of compensation. Right, again, it's not a cost to you, it's money that you shouldn't have took in the first place, just hand it back over. And all of this creates great anxiety for potential funders in our industry. Well, that's your own fault, because when you drafted the agreements way back when, you should have anticipated that this could cause another PPI scandal. Because what was at the heart of PPI scandal? Undisclosed commissions. So what are you doing when you say we may receive a commission? Well, then you are sailing close to the wind in terms of another scandal which involves undisclosed commissions. And if that affects potential funders in your industries, tough. Let this be a lesson to you. Don't missell products in the future so you harm your potential to get funders in the future. But if this causes an economic shake-up to the benefit of the consumer, then going forward, you're going to have better, more transparent transactions for the consumer, and the market will adjust. This is the thing. It's like when this. It's probably not the best example, but it's the only one I can think of at the moment. But when the smoking ban came in, there were people who were outraged that they had to go outside and smoke. Yeah. But it was like, this is obviously unhealthy. You know, if I don't, and then they were, I've got to stand outside, and they brought it in the summer, and they were annoyed, and then they got more annoyed because it started raining. But guess what? You know, when was that? 2007. Yeah. Everyone just got on with it, and everyone adjusted, and now it's not a thing. It's the same here. It's like you're gonna have to start disclosing commissions. If you don't get funding, well, get inventive. Find another way to get funded. Yeah. Get another way of income. You know, cut your cloth accordingly, and then you'll find, you know, people will still buy cars off you. You're just gonna have to be a bit more competitive. That's what's wrong with that. Yeah. I do not understand this notion of we enjoyed misleading consumers, we want to carry on doing it, don't make us hand back the money. It's like, what? Well, like, what world are you living in? You
raise a pretty interesting point there, actually, because people still need to buy cars, and people still don't have the money, especially now.
Yeah, those two things haven't changed.
Those two things haven't changed, so the demand for the product is still there. Yeah. But also, if you actually think about it from the bank's perspective, yes, they was paying out a lot of commission, but this disclosure, are they trying to say that, right, okay, we're not going, the brokers are not, or the car dealers are not going to work for anything less than these thousands of pounds for commission, which means that we can't sell as much finance? Or are they trying to imply that people just won't take cars out?
People are always going to take cars out, and there's nothing wrong with a commission if it's disclosed. So just disclose it. The fix to this problem is simple. It is so easy. And we've said in previous podcast, the Close Brothers and I think Firstrand changed their procedure within a week. Yeah.
5 days.
You know, and that's it. They're just crying because we've made so much money mis-selling stuff, and now we've got to hand it back. Oh, it's like, you know, a burglar having to hand back stolen goods and moaning about it. Yeah. It's like, what are you talking about? Just hand back the stuff you shouldn't have taken. Correct. And, you know.
Well, I think as well, what's quite interesting about the articles as well is I don't think they realise they tripped themselves up in a number of times. Yeah. There was one section in one of the articles that said, and I'll quote it, there is a significant and growing volume of motor finance commission complaints. Yeah. As of the beginning of December 23, there were approximately 10,000 motor finance commissions, right? Of which, get this, 90% were referred since the start of 22. So there was 10,000 at the beginning of December 2023.
Yeah.
And 90% of them were referred to the FOS
Yeah.
from the start of 2022.
Right.
So that's 2 years
Mm-hmm.
for a motor finance complaint to be sat with the FOS.
Yeah.
What is going on there?
What was it? They were accused of doing nothing, very little or nothing, and FCA and FOS maybe have got a similar issue. But yeah, it's
90%. They've been sat there for 2 years. Yeah. What is the? I don't understand. You know, from a journalist perspective,
well, it's
and
music to the
that,
bank's ears. Like, oh, brilliant! You don't have to pay anything over.
Yeah. But how is that doing anything but further prove the point of the law firms to say you're all incompetent?
Yeah. Within 2 years, I'd had Mr. Johnson's case, lost the trial, and was in the Court of Appeal. Within 2 years. So that's what I did within 2 years.
Yeah.
Whereas probably an identical case
been sat on the ombudsman's desk
or floor, gathering dust for 2 years and then nothing's happened. And probably an identical.
But a law firm's been keeping the client up to date. The client's been asking for updates. The law firm will have been. I know this because we've done it.
Yeah.
The law firm's been chasing the FOS for an update. There's
Ambulance
been no update.
chasing.
Yeah. All of this to the detriment of the client.
Yeah.
To the detriment of the client. It's mental, mate. No, it was. I just needed to get your thoughts on that because that is mental.
There's one line here just before we close out. This Times article is the peak. The playing field is presently tilted in the claims management company's favour. The banks argue. The playing field, you mean the law?
Yeah.
The law it benefits the consumer. No, the playing field's tilted.
Yeah, the playing field literally in the courtrooms.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give him his due. He's used a lot of semantics, and he must have gone through it and bent every semantic.
You know what I think is interesting
against the consumer,
and this is never reported on, but it is like you said we use the word disproportionate. Tilted in our favour, you're rocking up I've had consolidated claims where we've struck one barrister for 3 claims. They turn up with 3 barristers from very, very reputable barristers' chambers where I know for a fact the barrister is on between 5,000 and 6,000 just for the small track hearing.
Really?
Yeah. Just for the small track hearing. So how is that proportionate to these claims?
Yeah. Well,
how is it tilted in our favour?
Well, it comes right back to why a bank wants a consumer to do it themselves, because they'll just blast them out the water because they've got the financial muscle. Yeah, the small claims track is tilted in favour of the defendant because they can instruct, like you say, eminent counsel, whatever cost. Doesn't matter if the claim's worth £1,000 and their costs are £10,000. They can instruct solicitors on a privately funded basis because they've got a lot of money.
That they've ripped off. Yeah, they've got the money from ripping people off.
Yeah, and it goes on.
No, it's mental, mate. Cheers.